Good evening, everyone. My name is Karl. I'm welcome to a Bergkamp Wonderland and Arsenal podcast. Today with me, I have the person who is always here, Danny the Butter Monkey. How are you, sir?
I'm very good, and I'm glad that you said you'd host, because I hate having to host because I'm not good at it. All I'm good at is pressing record, and even that I've been known to mess up. I'm not going to ask how you are. I'll leave that for someone else.
Oh, fine. So the racism started already. Femi, you're with me as well. I see we're together once again, Femi. I'm not saying that there's any casual racism within ABW, but 3 times we've put it together. What are they trying to say, Femi? What are they trying to do to us?
I know, look at opposition as well, right at the bottom of the screen.
Right, do you see what I'm saying? How are you, though?
I'm good. Ready to pod.
Good. And the most famous person that I know, at least, and the only man that follows me. No, he's not. I lie. I do have someone else that follows me with a tick by their name. It is Simon Collins. Simon, how are you?
Oh, very good. That's a lie. You know Chris Carpenter, and he's more famous than me. He's definitely more famous.
Only run the streets of Plymouth, but that's for reasons that we can't really discuss on the podcast.
That's true. And how are you? Because no one's asked you how you are. Danny, very rudely.
Bastards, that's what they are. I'm not too bad. I am happy. Good. I'm tired. I think I'm getting the flu, but besides that,
nice.
Not too bad. So let's go straight into what we're going to talk about this evening. So, Simon, I'm going to stick with you because you're probably best or closest to this. Obviously, Unai's gone. We found out. Was it Friday? We found out that
Friday,
yeah, he left. How did you find out from being a member of the press, Simon?
Well, it was an interesting one because, as we now know, through the information that's come out, the decision to sack Unai Emery was made earlier in the week when Raul and Vinay went to America to meet with Stan and Josh Kroenke, essentially meaning that Frankfurt game was, he was a dead man walking. But as the press, quite incredibly, that information, that story hadn't come out until after Unai had gone. So, after the game on Thursday, Unai did his press conference. I was in the mix zone. I think the only player who stopped to speak to the media was Mustafi, and even then he only spoke to the German media. Very few players we saw. We did see Husfami come out. Vinay came out, admittedly looking, pretty weathered, pretty shocked. We saw Raul and Edu, and it was all pretty quiet from in terms of a press and media viewpoint. There wasn't much coming out of the club, and that gave a sort of inkling that, something was going on. When you hear silence, when there's no noise, you expect a storm's coming. And sure enough, in the morning, it was around sort of 8 o'clock. Shock. It was David Ornstein who tweeted the news that Emery was likely to go. And then it was officially 9 minutes past 10 that the announcement came. As a newspaper, we go to print at 11. So we were already sort of prepping a few things because we had an inkling he was going. I think most people thought that. So I'd written a piece about Ljungberg. We'd started drafting a few different panels and stuff. And then when that came, we essentially had sort of 50 minutes to put it all together and get it in print, which we just about did. But it was a pretty frantic morning for us, and one I wouldn't like to recreate again, if I'm being honest.
I can imagine. What was the feeling sort of within the press? I think, was it a fact that it was time for him to go? Did some of the journalists feel sorry for him? What was the general consensus?
Yeah, I think you'll struggle to find anyone, be it journalist or fan, who didn't think his time was up. And I mean, there was a lot of stories. We've read all the stories that have come out now about Emery struggling to communicate with players. We've heard about people taking the mick out of his accent. We've heard about all these stories about a lack of communication. And for me personally, I do have a bit of sympathy for him now. And I think perhaps we've seen that a bit from other sides of fans and maybe the press, simply because you just felt like he never really could get his point across, or, his style or his philosophy or any of that across, be that to the players or to us in the media, to them, the fans. You felt that language barrier was such a difficult thing for him. And there's no shame in that at all. I think if I went to Spain, or any of us went to a foreign country, there's no telling if we'd be able to embrace the language. And I think we've seen with his record what he's done with Sevilla, in his own country, how good a manager he could be. I just really think that it just wasn't working out. And I think it was best that for all parties that it ended, because it was only going one way. And I know the club said they wanted to give him time, but I think we all knew, even after the Southampton game, which is when obviously Raul and Vinay subsequently flew to America, that this had run its course. And I think it was the right decision for everyone, to be honest.
I kind of agree with you. Femi, where was you when you heard the news? Just following on from what Simon said, do you think he'd be given the required time? And do you think it was time for him to go?
Where was I? I was at home. I jumped up and down a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of weird because now that the dust has settled, I think we've made a massive mistake here. Not in sacking Emery, but the amount of time we've taken to do it. The international break, fair enough, was a perfect time. It would have given. I mean, we just lost basically more points, and we're just throwing our season down the pan, really, haven't we? Because if you look at, we've dropped 5 more points because of the decision to sort of keep him a little bit longer. If you think of the Southampton game, we've drawn that game just about. And then obviously by installing a caretaker manager on sort of Friday, having to work with the team only on Saturday, you basically thrown away the Norwich game as well. So it's a bittersweet one, isn't it? Really, it's we've made some massive mistakes there, and I don't really know where we're going in terms of. I'm sure we'll discuss it more. The managerial situation at the moment is a bit of a weird one, really.
I'd have to agree. Danny, do you think that the language barrier was mainly Unai's hardest, or the thing that cost him his job? Do you think that because he couldn't put his point across, like Simon said, do you think that ultimately was the line in the sand?
I think it didn't help with people taking him seriously, because we, as the English public, we expect everybody in the entire planet to speak English. Now, most people I know from other countries don't just speak their natural language, their own language. They speak English. They like the woman who is on Strictly Come Dancing, the new judge. She's from Africa. She speaks German. She speaks English. She speaks whatever language, whatever country she's from there, because I'm not sure which country she's from. And automatically, she's fluent in 3 languages. Most people, like I speak to people that we know from Scandinavia. Oh, they'll speak Norwegian, Swedish, Danish. They'll speak English. They'll speak all of them. And so in this country, we look at people that don't speak English and go, well, they're obviously a moron. Well, hold on, they speak, like Wenger spoke 6 languages or whatever it was. And I think that people judged people harshly in this country if you don't speak English perfectly. Now, we saw that when Poch first came to Southampton, his English wasn't that good. But then he learnt it, and then people take him seriously. So maybe it's not maybe just the press, but maybe not the press at all. It's the fans that look at him and don't take him seriously because he doesn't speak English. And trying to get your point across to some players, most of those players at Arsenal will be bilingual or multilingual. So I don't think the players had much of a problem with it, but he did struggle. And the whole good evening thing, I used to think that was just a nice thing. Like you're going along with him and just going, oh, that's nice that he says that. But I think there's a bloke who, just to sum up how some of the fans are, there's some absolute arsehole who does this thing where he's pretending to be Emery and his eyes are going like this. He's doing that the whole time, go like that. That bloke's an arsehole. And that's the kind of fan that has made Emery's time here really hard. I don't think it was just the problem, the language barrier. I think it was a lot to do with him worrying and not wanting to lose. And you look some of the decisions that he's made formation-wise. And also the other major problem is bringing Ozil back into the team. Because as soon as you bring in Ozil, we can't play Ozil, Lacazette, Aubameyang and Pepe. So Pepe's had to drop out, and he's got loads of stick for that because Ozil, as much as everybody wanted to come back, he's not really done much, has he? And I think all of these things have all culminated in everything just falling apart. And like Femi was saying, why do it now? Spurs went, Poch, you're out. Jose, you're in. There was virtually 5 hours between one and the other, I think it was, or something like that. Arsenal go, oh yeah, we're not playing over the international break. That 2 weeks, we won't do it then. We'll wait the day after he's lost a game, then we'll do it, and then go, nah, we've got no real plans to get anybody else in. So it's just yet more unorganizedness going on with, or unorganization going on with the club. But yeah, I think the language did have a little bit to do with it, but it's from what part of the fan base that thought that was a bad side. I thought, well, you've learned to speak more Spanish than, well, you speak more Spanish than, no, you speak more of a foreign language than 99% of the English Arsenal fans, because I don't know anybody who speaks another language. start
Danny, do you think as well that they couldn't have gone, oh look, we're going to give him time, after that Leicester game, the statement came out, and then literally sack him the next game? They couldn't have done that. I know they sacked him one game after, which even for me, I think still, not really giving him time. Do you think they didn't tie themselves in knots a bit by saying, look, we're going to give him time?
I don't think whoever made that decision realised that when you do a vote of confidence, that means you're gone within a week. I don't think they realise that that's how football works in this country, that as soon as you say that, they've got to go. But I don't know. You say the Leicester game. I don't know any Arsenal fans who went, oh, yeah, we're going to go there and beat Leicester. No, Leicester are up there with Liverpool as the two best teams in the Premier League at the moment, and then it's going to be maybe Man City and other teams like that in the third best team. Anyone who thinks you're going to go to Leicester and win, it's madness. And I don't think that had anything to do with it.
Is it true, Simon? Just a quick question: how did Emery come across in press conferences? Just to go across off the language thing. Like, was he hard to understand within press conferences when you asked him a question?
Yeah, he genuinely was difficult to understand. I think as well, I don't know why he stopped having his translator, whether that was his decision or the club decision, but the first season he was there, he had a guy called Danny Lane, who's a translator, who was with him for the whole season, who would sort of initially would help with translating the questions for Emery. So basically give it to him the question in Spanish and he could answer in English. And then towards the end, he would just help if Emery didn't fully understand something. It's a bit like what Poch has with Jesus Perez. And he didn't have it this season. And I just wonder a bit if that might have helped with his understanding, because sometimes he sort of misinterpreted the question. And it was difficult. He was sometimes the sentences would be said in a way where the order of the words would be the sort of wrong way around, because in Spanish it's in a different order of things like that. And it just was hard to get his opinion across and his point across. And that made it difficult for the press, and I think for him to communicate. And it was telling, occasionally we would have Spanish press conferences there. They would ask a question in Spanish. There was one a few weeks ago about Ceballos saying, what's the situation with him? Gave a long answer in Spanish. It was translated afterwards, and it was really good. And it, completely understandable. But as we found with Premier League clubs, we saw with Pochettino when he went from Southampton to Spurs, they want their manager to be speaking English in the press conferences, as Emery wants to speak English, because of a global brand and a marketing viewpoint. You need your manager there speaking English.
I kind of have to agree. So at present, we have our interim manager, which is Fredrik Ljungberg. What do you think of that, Femi? Are you happy about him taking charge in the interim, or would you like to see him long term?
I think that writing has been kind of on the wall pretty much most of the season, to be honest. A lot of people, as soon as he was did the job shift with Steve Bold, a few people just sort of said, hold on a minute, what's that all about? And it's sort of been noticed from then that, that was probably what the route was. So I think a lot of people had come to accept that. I think, like Danny said, the only thing with that was Tottenham put a bit of pressure on Arsenal with their move for Mourinho, which was the swiftness that it all happened. So as far as Freddy, I didn't really watch the under-23s last season. I kept an eye on the results, so I saw that they were doing really well. But I don't know what kind of manager he is. He seems to be sort of Arsene Wenger style. He said he's branding himself on Arsene Wenger, and he also says Sven Goran Eriksson as well. That's sort of the two managers that he's mentioned so far. So we've got no choice really. I think what we need to know now is who his backroom staff. I know it hasn't been announced yet, but we kind of need to know who he's surrounding himself with, to sort of know, what kind of manager he's going to be, what kind of football we're going to play, how long this can go on, really. Because the longer that we don't appoint a backroom staff, the more it makes you think that they're trying to make an appointment of a manager probably quickly, aren't they?
I think so. We'll talk about who's in the running later. I just want to touch on the Norwich game that we had. So, Danny, Freddy had the team for one training session, and we went up to Norwich and drew 2-2. Just give me your quick synopsis of the game in sort of your own words.
I was I was kind of hoping that Freddie would go. Well, I looked back at Freddie's last 3 games when he managed the under-23s, and I think we won 3-0, 5-1, 5-0, or some number of things like that. And then he played Saka in all of them. And I was looking at his run of games where there was a massive run of games where he lost, I think, 5 games in a row as manager of the under-23s, but they coincided with 3 of the Europa League games. And so most of the players either played 2 games, one under-23, one for the main team, or they went off with the main team. Like Eddie Nketiah, 9 goals in 9 games. Now, if Freddie would have had him for the entire under-23 season, he'd have probably scored about 25 goals. And there was other players that come through as well. So getting back to the question, I was hoping that he would go and do the things that all the fans have seen. So when I saw that Chambers was playing right back and that Kolasinac was playing left back, which Kolasinac can't play left back, he can play left wing back, but then we're only playing 2 centre backs. I thought, well, maybe Chambers is playing centre back. And I just think the whole thing looked a little bit confused. And you just thought with Freddy Ljungberg being, I've got told off for saying that name, Freddy Ljungberg, it's not an L, silly me. We'd have thought with him being a right midfielder and someone who's played the beautiful game under Wenger, he'd have put his arm around Pepe and gone, Pepe, son, you're playing. This is what you got to do. I know what you need as from a manager and from the team and from the setup and the tactics for you to flourish. And we only used 2 subs in the game. We didn't play him. Then I thought, well, why no Bellerin and Tierney? But then Arscast was pointed out today that they played on Thursday and they're both coming back from injuries. And so it's probably best not to play them. Playing Mustafi, I thought that was a little bit strange. But if any one of the players has shown great mental fortitude, is Mustafi, for the amount of grief he got last season, been dropped to the Europa League and League Cup games, played well in all of them, and hasn't complained, hasn't moaned. But there again, I think the club told him he can leave, and he hasn't left. And so for him to get back in the first team, I think that's just shows if you work at it, that you can get your way back. But then he scored the own goal, which wasn't really his fault. But the entire setup, I wasn't happy with it. But if I knew anything, I'd be a manager. But I really expected Freddie to go, I see what all the problems are, like every Arsenal podcast does, and go and solve them immediately. But from when he was made manager to when that game started, that's 48 hours. It would be a little bit like trying to teach Jace how to speak English. You can't teach him the entire language at once. You have to teach him little bit by little bit. So, yeah, so I think it's going to be changes and they're going to be slow when they come through, but it is going to happen. But personally, I think we played the wrong formation. Pepe should have played that game.
Simon, do you think that Freddie will try anything drastically new to try and sort of put his mark on the team? Or do you think he'd try and keep it status quo?
I think we will see him put his own stamp on it. I mean, the interesting thing, when you appoint someone who's been there before in the backroom staff, you know, when Freddie would talk about problems and issues in the team, I mean, the question that sort of springs to mind is, well, why weren't you addressing those before? I mean, the argument you'll say is, okay, he was maybe saying them to Emery and Emery wasn't changing them. But there is that point where, you know, if you were part of that staff before and you saw these problems, why weren't they being addressed? But I definitely think Freddie will put his own stamp on it. Speaking to people who watched the under-23s last season, he normally played a sort of 4-2-3-1. Saka and Amici were the 2 sort of wingers. They'd swap sides quite a lot. He liked having Joe Willock as that number 10. And I thought it was quite telling that even on Sunday against Norwich, it was Willock who got the forward central role and not Ozil. So that's probably a sign of how much Ljungberg rates him. So I definitely think he'll try and put his imprint across. It's just how much he can in this amount of time, particularly when the games, you know, Arsenal are playing twice a week. He's only had his first real proper session today because on Friday it was a recovery session. Saturday, you know, was sort of shape work for Norwich. Monday off. So today is the first sort of proper session he's had. It's going to be difficult, I think, for him to really get his style across in this amount of time, this busy amount of period. We always say pre-seasons when they do it. So I think we will certainly see him try it. Whether he actually gets it and gets the time to do it is a different question.
I mean, I have to agree with you. I think that, like you said, today was his first proper training session. And like I said, the games are coming thick and fast. And like Danny said, we're all expecting miracles, aren't we? We're expecting Freddie to come in, wave his magic wand and just, you know, change everything that's inherently wrong with Arsenal. And I think being realistic, you have to know that our defence is a shambles. There is something really, really wrong with our defence. It doesn't matter who you put in the centre-back partnership, whether it be Sokratis, whether it be Luiz, whether it be Mustafi, it makes no difference. There's something inherently wrong with our defence. And I think maybe Unai tried to sort that out and obviously just didn't manage to do it. Personally, I think if our go-to centre-back is David Luiz, I think that we are definitely in trouble. But I guess that's something to sort out. Maybe I don't think he'll get a January transfer window. Who knows? He might not be in charge back then. But
I mean, these are deep-rooted issues, aren't they, Karl? Like these are issues we've been talking about on this podcast for 4 or 5 years. We've spoken about problems with the defence at the back end of the Wenger reign, problems with the away form. So I mean, I think we're asking a lot if we're expecting Freddy to come in and solve these problems that we've spoken about. I mean, for years on here.
I totally agree. I think that. Me and Danny used to speak about all the time. If you change all the players and the only thing that was ever present was Arsene Wenger, was he the problem with the defence? Some might argue that he maybe was, and there's rumours about how Arsenal didn't need to do defensive training in training. I very much doubt that's true. However, the way they played, it kind of seemed like it. We got a new manager, Unai's come in, and at the beginning of his tenure, he done quite well. He had 22 games unbeaten. So you got to kind of give him credit for that. But then ever since then, we have just declined, and our defense have just gone into meltdown where we are making mistake after mistake after mistake. And people thought that Xhaka was a problem. Xhaka come out of the team, we still had the same issues. So yeah, like he's said, Simon, we can't expect Freddy to come in and just, fix the defense. I mean, I'd be happy if he did. I think everyone in and around the club would be happy. But how much time does he give that? The Norwich game, 2-2 result. Femi, do we write that off? Do we say, right, you know what, that was your initiation game. We can't judge you based on that result? Or do you have to go straight in and say, well, Freddy, it wasn't good enough. We need to play better?
You know what? Some of the things. I mean, Simon, were you at the press conference today, or you weren't really?
I was there today. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't you think that it was refreshing to hear a manager talking about what was actually the problem with the team, and you could actually understand it? So when he's talking about transition and he's talking about sprinting, players are sprinting straight. It's the things that we've been saying for a while. But to hear the manager actually articulate it and say, "I know what the problem is, and it's something that I can coach." Those are the words that he was saying. So he just needs time. Unfortunately, if you look at our fixture list, we've literally got no time. So we've got, sort of this Thursday and Monday, two, it shouldn't be difficult, but the way our form is, 2 difficult games. Any away game is basically a write-off at the moment. And then you're into a run of sort of Man Cities and Chelsea's, Everton aways, games like that. So he's just been dropped into a baptism of fire, basically. And unfortunately, he's going to have to learn very, very quickly. I think one of the things that he needs to look at is if there's certain things in our team that if it's not been working, there's just no way it's not going to work. So there's certain players that if you keep playing them, it doesn't matter what happens, it's just not going to work. There's some combinations that are just not going to work. Gary Neville said that some of our players are just uncoachable. When you get to that point that there's no one, there's players there that Wenger's had and can't be coached. Emery's had, they can't be coached. So you're at a loss if you're a manager that thinks I'm going to come in and I'm going to coach them to change. Sometimes you just have to work on combinations and just look at what hasn't worked and stay away from that. That's the best. I'm not a manager, but that's probably what the first thing I would do if I didn't have a lot of training sessions. Stay away from players that just don't work. It's that simple, first and foremost. I know you probably run out of players with our team, though. Probably.
That was an interesting thing that was actually said in the press conference by Freddie, and it's a point Archie made in the comments, actually saying a lot of the defenders are quite similar. They're not that physical or dominant. And a point when Freddie was talking about what Femi says when he was trying to explain the problems was that against Norwich, the team sort of lost its structure and shape. So the fact that there wasn't massive pace meant, someone like Hernandez could expose that. And it was refreshing as it was to hear someone articulate that, okay, maybe our defenders aren't the quickest, aren't the strongest, but we can't play in a way where we lose our structure and allow ourselves to be, opened up by that. So the idea that and the belief that Freddie's seen those problems already is good. It's just whether he can correct it in the amount of time.
Yes. Speaking of correcting players, I think we need to get onto the subject of maybe Lacazette, because I know he had his injuries, but since he's come back from his injury, he hasn't had the best of times. I think he's only scored, is it 1 goal or 2 goals, Danny? I'm sure you can help.
4 in 11 games.
So I think he's kind of had a bit of a dip. Danny, do you put that down to his injury, or do you think there's anything else going on?
I think a lot of it has got to come down to supply. If he hasn't got people behind him giving him the ball, then we've seen in so many games recently that both Lacazette and Aubameyang have been coming so deep. They've almost been wing backs coming back to get the ball. Remember years ago when Ozil used to get really annoyed at the midfield, he'd come back into midfield and get the ball. And then, no, not Sanchez, that was it. You'd often see Sanchez coming all the way back to the defence. When the people weren't giving him the ball through to the midfield, through to him, he'd come back and get the ball, and then he'd run through, like a FIFA goal. You'd come back and get the ball off your keeper. You'd run up the whole of the. I don't play FIFA anymore, and he'd do stuff like that, and you'd think, well, why is he doing that? Because of the frustration of not being given the ball. And then these two, Lacazette and Aubameyang, are not being given the ball. And that's why Ozil's been brought back into the team. So Ozil, his job is to take the ball from the midfield and then pass it around to the front two. But it seems I get so annoyed when we are just constantly... Tierney on the left-hand side, I'm perfectly fine with. He will put that ball, he'll cross it low and hard to middle of the box, and then someone will be there to try and do something with it. But on the right-hand side with Chambers, I know he got a hat-trick of assists in one game, but with Chambers and with Bellerin, and when Maitland-Niles was playing there, you run down to the corner flag, you run in, and then you put a high ball in. Who are they expecting to get that high ball? Lacazette isn't known for his aerial prowess, is he? Aubameyang can do it, but these people need the ball coming in like Tierney does, low and hard into the middle of the box when anybody can get it, or they need to run at the defenders with the ball, and they're not getting a chance to do either that lot, because as soon as we get the ball, the other team pack their defence, and most of their players will be up there, and they'll have one player down in our half trying to wait to get the ball off us. And I'm thinking, well, how I don't know how you can look at that situation unless you've got someone of the ability of Ramsey or Ozil playing a bit deeper, where they'll be able to thread those balls through. Now, you'll see, sometimes we've seen it from Ozil in these recent games, you can see him thinking, like there was one on the edge of the box, the ball come from the right-hand side, Ozil got it, waited, passed it through to someone, and then I think they had a shot on goal or they scored. And that's the kind of genius that you're going to get from Ozil if he's got a manager that believes in him, and that's why he needs to play. And that's as soon as Ramsey's gone, that's what we're missing, the link between Ozil and the rest of the midfield, because Guendouzi's never going to score a goal. Xhaka's only going to score one from half a mile out. Torreira, apparently, occasionally he does. I mean, he's got 2 or 3 goals. He might score a goal from when they're on the edge of the box, when it's all going mad in the box, and you're trying to just lob one in. You're never going to get someone like Sanchez or Ramsey where they're going to run the length of the pitch, take people on, pass it around and try and score a goal. And that's the kind of thing we're missing. And if they can't do that, then Lacazette isn't going to get the ball, is he? And like someone's just put in the box, in the chat box, Archie, as per Lacazette has 7 away goals in 2 seasons. Giroud was slated for that. Very true. Giroud was slated for that. There just needs to be more. I think with Emery, he was so worried about losing, he was packing the midfield full of people that would break up play and defend. They're not defending our defenders, are they? Just break up play. I think that's it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's the supply chain is, I guess, for Lacazette, it has dried up. And you think with the amount of talent that we actually have on the pitch, the likes of Ozil, the likes of Pepe, the likes of,
even Ceballos at times. I mean, we've got 8 games without a win.
To an extent, Xhaka as well, because he's part. I mean, I don't think he's good at football, but he's good at passing. He's good at long balls. So, Simon, what do you think the issue is? Do you think it was more Emery was telling the players rather not to lose the game, rather than to go out and win the game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I felt a bit towards the sort of the end. I sort of agree with Danny, where it felt like his teams he was sort of scared about losing the game rather than scared about not winning it, if that makes sense. I remember that Southampton game, the home game, where, he only had sort of like 3 attackers on the pitch, 3 defenders against a team 19th in the Premier League who'd letting, I think it was 28, 29 goals in 12 games. So there was an element of that. And the frustrating thing, I think, from my point of view, and Danny touched on it earlier about you've got Ozil trying to fit in Aubameyang, Lacazette, Pepe. You know, those four have never started a game this entire season. We've only seen them on the pitch twice. It was Leicester away, and I think the end of that Southampton game is the only time we've seen all four of them on the pitch together. And I thought the best, I mean, Emery described it as the best 20 minutes of the season, which is a bit weird because it was a 0-0 period against Southampton. But that sort of 45 to 65 minutes when all four were on the pitch and they were flowing forward. Aubameyang had a great chance. It was saved by McCarthy. Pepe hit the bar. That was the best we've looked going forward, is when all four of those played. So that's something I really want to see. I want to just have the opportunity to look at those four going full throttle. And, you know, behind them you can play, you know, Xhaka and Torreira, you know, Xhaka and Guendouzi, two sort of holding players. But let those four players go out and play and express themselves and try and win the game. And that's what I really want to see from Arsenal.
Femi, it was touched on just an earlier go about the midfield, about packing the midfield. Now, we can talk about the shots against us ratio, which we know is astronomical. So if our midfield are not protecting the defence and they're not providing anything going forward, what do you think is the issue? Like, why are they there? What do you think is the best partnership?
You know, I've really been thinking about this, and I've just been thinking something that's going to be so controversial to so many Arsenal fans, but we have to take Guendouzi out of the team. I think it's just time to just not rely so much on him. I'm not saying sell him, but take him out of the firing line for a while. Number one, he's just off form, whether the people want to admit it or not. Number two, we've tried every combination, but it's always a combination with him. It's time to try a different combination. I remember last season, we tried him with El Neni, and we tried him with this, and we tried him with that. Emery just tried every combination to get him to work. Sometimes you take him out, he doesn't defend well enough, he doesn't attack well enough. So find a balance where it seems like Ljungberg wants to play a 4-3-3. That's what he started with. If he's going to play 4-3-3, he has to do two things. He has to take out one of the strikers and play two fast. We've got no pace in our team as well. That's one of the other things. So where you see our midfielders struggling to cover from side to side, is because our wide forwards, they're not fast enough to get forward and back, basically. So we've got to make a sacrifice somewhere. And I would say you got to take Lacazette out of the team for a while, and you got to take Guendouzi out of the team for a while, and just introduce them back slowly as the team is getting confidence. You can see them get confidence as well. That's probably the best I would say. You probably want to put Torreira as the deepest player, or you know, just running around helping Xhaka out, because Xhaka's mobility added with the centre back, or lack of mobility, I should say, is a massive problem for us.
Karl, did you know that Guendouzi, I've just been having a quick look, has played 67 out of 79 games for Arsenal in the last two seasons?
That's amazing. I want to see 20.
Yeah,
he does look tired, I think.
Maybe he might get a rest under Ljungberg, but then, you know, a centre midfield of what you're saying, Xhaka and maybe Torreira, is that known as a bit too defensive? Would you put Willock in the middle?
Not really. I think our best performance was against Tottenham last season, and it was Xhaka and Torreira that played that match. So I don't think it's too defensive. I just think if you want to play the three, especially the four up front that Simon was saying, then you probably need to look at playing one of those two like really deep. I mean, Torreira for Uruguay, when you watch him, he virtually plays near enough close to the two centre backs. So we've got to make use of our players in their best positions as well.
That was the best midfield pairing last season, Xhaka and Torreira. Those two, with Ramsey playing as the number 10, and then Aubameyang, Lacazette as the strikers. That was the best midfield by the end of the season. So I don't think too many people would be opposed to giving it another go.
I have to agree. Talking about people coming back into the team, Martinelli. Danny, would you give Martinelli a go for the sake of Lacazette or even Aubameyang? Would you start him tomorrow against Brighton?
I think he's due. Quite a lot of people in the chat box have been saying that. I think it is trying to drop Lacazette. I love Lacazette. If Lacazette was here, I'd be giving him a big hug, because he's a beautiful man. He's a wonderful player. but something isn't right at the moment with him. And I think you are losing so much from Aubameyang's game by playing Aubameyang out wide. And I noticed when we were playing the game against Norwich, a couple of games recently, you had Ozil and Aubameyang were swapping sides. And so was Pepe when he plays. But Lacazette, the only thing Lacazette really done, no, I don't want to, no, that sounds bad. What Lacazette was doing was dropping deeper and then letting all the other people move around him. I think if we have a dynamic front three of Pepe, Aubameyang and Martinelli, all three of those can play on all three sides. And then remember the days when, who was it I was trying to think of, where you didn't know what they're going to do. Anyway, forget about that. I was thinking about the time when you had so many players that can play in different positions up front. You don't know what you're going to do with them. If you're a defender, you don't know which one you're going to go and mark because they're all constantly moving around, conveyor belting themselves. So I think Martinelli definitely does need to get a chance. You can't bring him on with 5 or 6 minutes every time, or however many minutes he got in the last game against Norwich or the one before that. He does deserve to start the game. I'd love to see Pepe's. The more you play Pepe, the more Pepe is going to come good, or play him in the position that you need to be. So even if you play Aubameyang up front on his own, and then you have Pepe and Martinelli playing either side of him slightly a little bit deeper, then Ozil can go back into the midfield a little bit. Doesn't have to do all the running, but he can still get the ball, and he's got 3 people that he can give the ball to. Then those two can swap sides. They can all play out front. Well, I'm sure Pepe can play out front, and just get them on the break, because you've got 3 really quick players. And I think Lacazette maybe does need a break. But last time this happened with Lacazette, it turned out he had an injury, and he was still playing with an injury because we had no one else to play, which is why we brought Aubameyang in. And then it just makes me think, what the hell is going? Who's buying these players? We need a creative midfielder. We need world-class centre backs, and we go and spend 72 million, although it be 2012 on Pepe. And why did we buy Aubameyang? We had Lacazette. You don't need Aubameyang and Lacazette in the same team when you've got so many deficiencies behind him. We have got 3 of the best forward players in the world, and maybe 4 if you're going to include Ozil. But yet behind us, we're bloody lower half of the team quality player, low half of the Premier League quality players. We've got so much stuff up front, and the headache is, how do you mix all 3 of those brilliant players to play up front? And now we've got Martinelli going, well, I've got 7 goals in 10 games or whatever it is. I want to start playing games as well. Oh look, we've had a donation, Karl, from. Did you see that? Who was it? Someone said earlier they were walking past. Unique 79 said he's just walked past your house.
Stranger danger. Yes, I do know Unique 79. I met him at the train station the other day, actually.
Were you busy making sure he's late for work?
No, not my trains. So, they would have been on time.
I'll tell you what, here's a stat. Under Unai Emery, Martinelli was the 3rd joint top scorer of Emery's reign.
Yeah, Willock was 4th, wasn't he?
Yeah. Martinelli was the 3rd joint top scorer, which gives you, and obviously Aubameyang and Lacazette were number 2, which highlights, Arsenal dependency on them. But Martinelli, that shows how big an impact he's had. And for me, I agree with what everyone's saying. I think he's got to be due a start. I mean, he's been fantastic in the Europa League, Carabao Cup. I thought when he came on against Norwich, there was that bit right at the end when Torreira had that chance. The ball went down the left, and Martinelli, I think it was Max Aaron's the right back. He just absolutely shoulder barged him off the ball, beat his man, got the cross in, and Torreira almost scored. I think he looks a fantastic player, and I really, really think he deserves a chance.
Do you think he might get a chance tomorrow, Simon?
Maybe. I don't know. It's an interesting one. I mean, because the argument will be, does he bring Pepe in and, as Danny was saying, give him the arm round the shoulder, go show yourself what you can do. So if it was me, I would give Martinelli a start. I just wonder whether he might think it's a chance to give Pepe the old arm round the shoulder and, go show yourself. But if he's going on form and performance at the training ground, which is what Ljungberg said when he was asked about why he picked Mustafi and co on Sunday, then you think Martinelli's in your first team.
I have to agree.
Karl?
Can I also ask what's happened to Reece Nelson? Because he sort of just disappeared off the face of the planet at the moment. He started the season quite well.
Yeah, and then he had that injury and Saka sort of overtook him, didn't he? Quite dramatically. And Saka, I don't know what you guys think, but I thought when he came on against Norwich and a few other games, just looks a little low on confidence and could perhaps do with, a few games in the under 23s. I think we forget he's like 18 years old, this kid, isn't he? So
yeah, he's just turned 18 in September, didn't he?
Yeah.
So I think we've got to be careful not to ruin his confidence. He looked so promising when he, last season and also when he came in the team, but recently he's just looked like he looked like a boy, to be honest, playing men's football.
Didn't he have a
If
bit of a
that's-
knock? Because I just looked.
He missed 2 games. Yeah,
He's
Who's
not
that?
played for the
Saka?
under-23s.
Saka.
Nelson.
Well, Nelson, yeah, he
Yeah,
did have a knock. He did have a knock. He got pulled out the under-21s, I think, October, November.
Yeah,
And it sort of stunted him a bit. But
I
yeah,
think
he's
he's
another.
The
Another
last time he played was 3 under-23 games ago against Spurs when we beat them 3-1 at Spurs, and he came off in the 40. Came off just after half time, so maybe he had a bit of an injury there. A couple of things, Karl, before we move on. I've done a translation of Julian Nagelman's donation. He says, should I manage Arsenal or Barbican Pirates? And what happens to the connection between midfield and Lacazette with an attack without Lacazette? So thank you very much, Mr. Nagelsmann, for that. And hopefully you'll be manager soon. And Karl, I have got up here what you asked for in the chat box. So let me know when you want that.
You're a lovely guy.
I know.
Simon, the odds on the next manager, I think favourite, it should be Allegri, apparently. Do you have any journalism insider of who the next Arsenal manager is going to be?
I would love to come in here with the pearls of wisdom and grace you with who's it going to be, but
we don't know any difference.
Yeah, I could just make it up, couldn't I? No, I think it's interesting what's been reported in the last few days about there being a sort of 12-man shortlist, and there's quite a few names on that, which I think gives you an indication. I mean, the variety of the names being mentioned. We've got Arteta, this is a similar boat to Ljungberg, where he's not really coached the first team. We've got Ancelotti, who's won Serie A, Bundesliga, Liga, Champions League titles. We've got Brendan Rodgers, who's a training ground coach. I think that gives you an example of what Kroenke hinted at, where, this is going to be quite a thorough process, again, like we were told for Emery. Lots of different names on the table. I do think there is a desire for Ljungberg to do well and to possibly put himself forward as a candidate. James Ollie, my colleague, wrote that the other day as a piece for our newspaper, saying, there's a desire for Ljungberg to put his hand up and get it. For me, I personally think it's too big a job for Ljungberg. I think this is a massive rebuild job that needs a big man to do it. For me personally, I would have Rodgers as my pick. But we look at that and you think it's going to be 14 million to get him out of that contract to Leicester. And are we really going to pay that at the moment? Which is perhaps why Allegri, out of work, no compensation, looks like the most attractive choice, certainly with the bookmakers. I think that's why he's favourite up there, given the fact that the club won't want to spend loads and won't want to be restricted with FFP and things like that coming in. So,
with all the money that we spent in the summer, I know when you work out that it's spread over 4 seasons in some cases, and we actually didn't lose any money in the summer because the players we sold, we got the money straight immediately. If Allegri does come in, not only have you got his massive wages, then you've got all of his backroom staff, and then he's been learning English for the last 2 years, they said. And also, he's not going to come in and do much of what we've got, is he? Because you can't polish a turd, and we have got too many turds there. And if you look at the team that he had at Juventus and some of the really decent defenders and the defence, I mean, you had people like, who was it? The 2 wingers ended up playing as wing backs. Who was it? The Costa, and there was another one, wasn't there? Not Bernardeschi, the other one. He played on the right hand. Cuadrado. God, I've murdered.
Cuadrado.
Yeah, you had those who were so able to defend well. They ended up playing as wing back, and in fact, you even had Lichtsteiner playing as a right midfielder at times. But I mean, looking at these odds here, like you were saying, it's between Allegri and Arteta. You never see a broke bookie, but Allegri's going to want so much money to come in and spend on players.
Last time as well, he wanted 9 backroom staff, Allegri.
Shit. But he's going to want what? How much do you think reasonably he's going to want in the January transfer window and then again in the summer? Because also with Arsenal, we've got this annoying habit of going, all these players, they're all average players. I think Mustafi, don't quote me on this, when he was at Valencia, he was on about 14,000 a week. And when he came to Arsenal, he's on 40 or 50,000 a week. That's why he's not gone anywhere, because we've got so many players on massive wages that if you pluck them from the Spanish, French, German leagues that don't pay a lot of money, When you want to unplug them, they're going to go, fuck off, I'm on 50 grand a week. I'm not going to go and take 20 grand a week. And he's going to want to get rid of all of them lot.
But isn't that the same for everywhere, Danny? Like for any manager that we bring in, they're going to want their own backroom staff. Whether it's Allegri, Arteta.
Nine's quite a lot. 9 is a big backroom staff.
But even so, yeah, I get that. And you're going to have to pay them. But even if we bring in Arteta, who's he going to bring in as his backroom staff? Because everyone he works with is at Man City. I very much doubt that anyone from Man City is going to say, yeah, no worries, Mikel, I'll come with you to Arsenal to sort out that shambles. Like, it's not going to happen. So whether he keeps Ljungberg as his number 2 and then promotes from within, who else is there?
Did you see what Mourinho did last week when he came in? He went and he had been studying who he wanted as his new sort of backroom team. And he went to Lille and he just blocked 2 and he plopped 1 from here because he had already planned it ahead. Most of these guys do have it planned ahead. And just on that list as well, I know this is going to sound really crazy, but there's going to be a name that's not on that list that might come in because Emery was not anywhere to be seen on any list that I saw last time. Remember when we were trying to sign Pepe, Zaha during the summer? Did you even think had a chance of signing Pepe? No chance. There's just random things there's just random things that seem to happen at Arsenal since this new regime come in. So I would not be surprised if there's a name not on that list that they're looking at. I really hope it's not Marcelino guy that I've been hearing about all day. I really that'll be so underwhelming.
Emery was 66-1. When he got the job. So, Danny, who's 66-1? What could we get for that?
Chris. I don't think Chris is less than that. I don't even think you get. It's like those kind of odds are the kind of odds you used to get on Leicester winning the Premier League. Yeah. They're just so people are just thinking there's absolutely no chance of getting it.
But it was interesting. I mean, if you listen to, I remember when Emery got the job, we were sort of bold because Edis was saying, "Oh, how fantastic he was in the interview" and things like that. And now if you listen to Ornstein saying how bad Allegri was in the interview. So, I mean, I want to know who's doing these interviews that Emery interviewed well. I mean, it must have been Sanieli must have been translating for him and making him sound like an absolute genius because I can't work out how he was good in the interview.
Got a point about Freddy, which I always think I often notice that if an assistant manager then gets the job as caretaker manager and goes, oh, I want to go for this job. I'd like to be considered as the job as manager. When the new manager comes in, you're out on your ear. But if you're an assistant manager and you become caretaker manager and you go, I don't want the job, you're kind of guaranteeing that you're going to stay at the club when the new manager comes. Is that a kind of thing that you've noticed or have I dreamt it?
I think if from an outsider, if you're going to get a brand new manager in, you kind of want someone familiar with the club in and around you. Same with Emery and Steve Bold. Steve Bold was technically the assistant manager, wasn't he? He technically didn't do anything because you never saw Steve Bold do a single thing in his first season under Emery. But, I think Emery wanted a connection between maybe him and the club and the players, and that was Steve Bold. And he wanted someone just to have that connection. And I think they'll be the same with the next manager coming in because Freddy, it has that connection with the players. Whatever the new manager comes in, whether it be Rodgers or whether it be Arteta or whether it be Allegri or whoever, I think they'll keep Ljungberg around just for, just to, even if it's a stage show, just to say, oh yeah, look, I've got him around, I'm going to take advice from him. He may not, but I still think that's the connection between the players, Ljungberg, and then the manager.
Someone here has put something about the Brazil. Sorry, Femi, the Brazil manager being a Corinthians fan. That was, I'm sure it's Tete who won the Copa Libertadores or Copa South America, and then he went off to with Edu at Corinthians, and then they both went off to the Brazilian national team. Do you know about that, Femi?
Yeah, I was reading a little bit on Le Grove. Actually, he was talking about Kia Juraptic. Is that how you pronounce his name?
FME, it's not
the super agent. So he was. He was breaking down his relationship with Edu, and it was really good article. If anyone wants to read it, he basically broke down, the route that Edu came to Arsenal basically, and he was talking about his relationship with Tite, and he was talking about, the problems that they had when they were at Corinthians, and then him taking him to Brazil. But I mean, does he speak it? The English thing is going to be a major thing for me, because if you just have to have someone who's charismatic and can communicate with the fans, because that's where Wenger, no matter what you thought of him, that's where he was still winning, even at the end, where the results went good, the performances went good. He was still articulate. He could communicate with the fans. He could galvanate the fans. You could still listen to Wenger now giving a great speech, probably galvanate you. And you that's what Brendan Rodgers, I mean, I heard a story about when he first came to the club and he gathered all the backroom staff, the staff of the club together, and told them what the club is going to be. You need someone that's going to just because no one else in the club talks. I don't know what Edu even sounds like anymore. He's been there for 6 months now. He hasn't said one word. So it's up to us to have a manager that's going to communicate with the fans. Otherwise, the fans just feel like they're in the dark all the time.
I have to agree. So I'll ask this question to all three of you, and just a name. So right now, you're in charge of Arsenal. Danny, you have to pick of any manager. Who you picking?
Oh, good God. Every time I get asked this, I've got no idea because I don't know what I want. Let me think about it and go to someone else.
Simon, of the list of what quote unquote gettable managers.
Yeah, gettable managers.
Yeah. Who are you choosing?
Oh, Rodgers.
Okay.
I wouldn't classify Poch as gettable. But
you don't think so?
I don't think so. It'd be amazing, but I'd go Rodgers.
Do you think it's more... Sorry, Femi, just one question. Do you think it is the Tottenham connection, or apparently there's a clause in his contract that if he takes a job within the next a year, that he doesn't get like his payoff from Tottenham?
Yeah, I think I saw that. I think he's on some sort of gardening leave or something, isn't he? But as well, I think for Poch, I think the Tottenham thing might be an issue, but I also think if you're him, that Tottenham job was a long sort of 5-year project, where he didn't have masses of money. He had to develop that squad. I just wonder whether he might look at Arsenal and think, I don't really want another project. I've done all that hard work. I'd quite like, a Bayern or a Real Madrid. I wonder whether that might be a factor as well, as much as the whole Arsenal-Tottenham thing. So Rodgers would be my pick, I think.
Okay. Femi, who are you going for?
Oh, God. You said gettable. I don't think Rodgers is gettable, to be honest.
No,
unless
40 million gets him.
I don't think he'll leave. That's, to be honest with you, like, if you really think about what you're saying about Poch moving to Arsenal, reputation, if Rodgers came to Arsenal after, 8 months at Leicester, that would be just a little bit disgraceful, to be honest.
I think you get him in the summer, maybe not now.
Yeah, in the summer, probably, yeah. I mean, he's been at Leicester since February. I mean, that would be very controversial as well, to be honest. I think we're in such a mess. I'll just go Arteta. And the reason why I say Arteta is because this season is basically a write-off, to be honest with you. You just need a manager that is going to come in and he's just going to start now, just like Rodgers did at Leicester last season. He settled in for a few months and then just say, we go again next season. We just need to stabilize. But I think the Arteta thing would be so, it's a bold choice. It's got so much rave reviews. Why not? Why not go for it?
Simon, just one quick question. Would you keep Ljungberg to the end of the season to get Rodgers in the summer?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would.
So Danny, come on. You've had enough time.
Reading the comments, I've had a few thoughts. GP has put there that Poch is still under contract at Spurs, and that I did hear this today. I think Arseblog was saying it, that he's not allowed to leave. If anybody employs him within a certain length of time, they've got to pay some kind of compensation. I don't want Brendan Rodgers at the club because I can't stand the ugly bastard. I hate everything about him. He may be a good manager, but I can't stand him and that big nose of his. I don't like his accent. I don't like the way he looks. You can't go from Freddy, who is the best-looking football manager in the history of the known game, and to someone as ugly as him. I think, now that I'm thinking about it, the Chinese season ended on Sunday. Rafa has been there and had a disaster of a season. I think he won the last game. The one before that, he lost 5-2. He's not had a good time there. They'll probably let him go. And he's shown that when he came to Chelsea and did this, he turned them around, got him into the Champions League and left. So maybe get him. I think that is doable. So maybe Rafa Benitez until the end of the season. And then next season, I do like the idea of Nagelsmann, but it looks like Red Bull could win the Bundesliga for the first time. They're doing really well with Dortmund and Bayern and all the others all tripping over themselves, constantly losing. Is he going to want to come to Arsenal when he's a really good young manager? I mean, when he was at Hoffenheim, he had a thing for that sounds wrong. He was really good at using the young players. And he made don't listen to Josh, though, because he says that Nelson was rubbish there. He only had, 5 minutes of a good spell. So my answer is Rafa now, Nagelsmann in the summer. What's your answer, Karl?
I would go, and I know a lot of people are not going to agree with me. I'd go Eddie Howe. I think he's taken Bournemouth as far as he can go. I don't think he's going to take Bournemouth any further. And I think Bournemouth are quite an established mid-table team now. And I think he's ready to step up. I think if you give him a chance, I'd give him a 2.5-year contract. And I'd say...
you take him now?
I'd take him now. I'd say, you know what? This season is a write-off, so get your feet under the table. But next season, you need to get us into the Champions League. I'd say that is your ultimate goal. And I think, like I said earlier, I think we need someone, not an English person, but someone who speaks English, someone who can talk to the press, someone who can definitely come in and sort of galvanize the squad. And you may look at Eddie Howe and say he can't, but I think he would definitely come in with good ideas. He's got Bournemouth playing some really good football, and that's with those players. Now we talk about our players meant to be, you know, some of the best players in the world, and they actually are. Now I'd love to give someone like Eddie Howe a try to see what he could do with a squad like ours. So that would be my shout, Eddie Howe.
Someone has mentioned Van Bronckhorst. I've heard a lot about this. He's only 44 years old. He's won the league with Rangers and Arsenal and Barcelona. He's won the Champions League. And when he was with Feyenoord a couple of years ago, he won the Eredivisie. He's won the Dutch Cup twice. He had a win ratio. I know it's a feeder league. It's not even a feeder league. It's a feeder league. But with Feyenoord, 176 games, won 107. That's a 60% win rate.
He's going to City, apparently.
Oh, as a coach?
Well, as he's being lined up to succeed Pep already. So
really?
I think he's out of work at the moment. I'm pretty sure he is. Yeah. And he's basically there was a story that came out, I think sort of October time.
Where's Pep going to go?
October time. And he was basically Van Bronckhorst was being shown around the training ground, all sorts, as a sort of, look, get ready. There might not an immediate Pep's going this month, but look, it's
falling apart at Man City.
Similar to how, Man City did it with Pep. They had Pellegrini and other managers in before, but it was always that was the next point. I think City set their sights on Van Bronckhorst as being the next one. But another Dutchman who would be interesting would be Ten Hag at Ajax, maybe. But I don't know. Again, difficult to get him out of there.
Well, he said he's not leaving till the summer, and he looks like he's nailed on for Bayern as well, because that looks like, Bayern have got a caretaker at the moment, and basically waiting for him because, he used to coach at Bayern as well, unders, so he knows the club quite well. With Van Bronckhorst, he actually works for the City Group, is what it is. So he's kind of got that Vieira type job. So what they're doing is they're grooming him to either take Arteta's role, like you said, in the aim of maybe taking over for Pep. But what they're saying is also they might dump him at one of their other clubs. So their Australian club or New York. What's that? Sorry.
Melbourne
or New York,
Melbourne,
New York City or whatever they're called as well. Yeah, they might dump him in one of those places. So he's sort of been incorporated into their system, and it's quite ironic, isn't it, that they've had Vieira, they've had Arteta, and Van Bronckhorst, 3 players who played for us, making strides in the City system.
Karl, can I just go over a couple of things that the people have mentioned in the chat box?
Go for it.
Systemo, who's a cheeky monkey, says Vieira's going to go to City, but would any of you like Vieira at Arsenal? I wouldn't.
No, because his team's not doing very well in the feeder league at the moment, are they?
I wouldn't be against it, but...
What, as a manager, or would you bring him as a coach?
A player. You can sort out midfield.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen enough of his teams to know what they'd like, but I think I would prefer Arteta to Vieira.
Okay, Stan the man. a friend of ours. Nobody mentioned Bielsa doing wonders at Leeds. Leeds are coming up. Would anybody? He's a bit of a genius, isn't he?
Well, the only thing we know that we could spy on Watford because they're just over the fence, aren't they? So we get a result against Watford, I guess. But I don't know. Does he speak good English?
No. Well,
exactly.
There's all the famous clips from the time of him with his translator, and he sort of Bielsa, talking down like this very quietly, and his translator next to him. So, I don't know what Bielsa would be like. I mean, as is the case with Bielsa, either it's fantastic or it explodes, isn't it? And,
was it a Marseille and it all went?
Oh, it was gone within like 2 weeks, wasn't it? Something crazy like that.
And the final one for us all to talk about. Start with you, Femi. Simeone.
He's the second or third highest paid manager in the world. He's like on nearly 20 million or something. If we're struggling to afford sort of 8-9 million, there's no chance we're getting him. So I think we've got to be realistic as well. I mean, in terms of him, I just think there's a reason why he hasn't left Atletico. I think everything in that club is just set up for him. I can't see him going to anywhere other than Italy to play that style of football. I don't think that would work anywhere else, to be honest with you. It will just get found out way too easily, especially in the Premier League, where draws are as good as a defeat, and they draw nearly every match.
Do you think him and Ozil would get on well, though? I think.
Imagine that.
Speaking of Leeds, and let's move swiftly on. Nice segue. We drew Leeds in the FA Cup, didn't we, Danny?
We certainly did. So I was just getting Karen's question and adding it to my list. So you want to go here, then you want to go there, and you go here. There you go, Karl.
Yes. I have a love-hate relationship with Leeds because I remember, was it in the I want to say, when did they beat us? I think it was
02-03.
And we lost at home, didn't we? And
that was the only game I ever took Sexy Frank to, and he said he's never going again.
I remember watching our TV thinking, oh yeah, we're blatantly going to beat Leeds. And because that time Leeds had a really good team. I remember they had Viduka up front, and they had Harry Kewell, Michael Bridges. He was the other guy that went to Man United.
Smith.
Alan
Smith, and they had a really, really good team then. And I remember they broke my heart that season. And from then on, I've never in my life liked Leeds ever. I've hated them. Simon, what do you make of the draw?
I think it's an interesting draw. I mean, Leeds now, for me, I always think of that game with Henry at the Emirates. And
that picture's going around all over the place.
And just curling it around in there. But I think it'll be a really, really interesting team to play against, just because of the way Bielsa plays football. And I always remember, the first... I mean, he was obviously known in England and stuff, but I remember when Man United played that Bilbao team, everyone was sort of blown away. But I'm just wondering how strong a Leeds going to sort of go, whether we're going to see the full... first team Bielsa going for it, which I'd love to see. I think it'd be great. And particularly if, we've got the new manager in place. But yeah, I think it's a good draw. I think home helps. I wouldn't have particularly liked going up to Ellen Road and playing there, but home tie is always nice, I think.
Femi, what do you make of the team that we're going to play? Do you think that, like I said, Simon, do you think we'll go all guns blazing, or do you think we might write this off?
Well, I don't think we will write it off because, like I said, our Premier League season looks a little bit in tatters anyway, and would be coming off of Christmas, New Year's run, which is quite, notoriously a hard fixture list. So I would probably think you're going to probably see a mix and match team, whatever mix and match for us is. Maybe something like we saw against in the Europa League against Frankfurt last week, something quite similar to that, really. Is Eddie, sort of cup tied for this one? I don't.
So my understanding, and anyone please correct me, is that they need permission from Arsenal to play him. So if they get permission from Arsenal, I believe that he can play. Anyone correct me? Am I right?
I'm not. That's definitely the case in UEFA. Because I always remember Courtois playing against Chelsea. In the Premier League, I don't think you can because of, I think it was Yakubu when he was playing at Portsmouth scored against his parent club. Can't remember who it was. And then they banned the ruling after that. I'm not sure in the FA Cup. I think you're cup tied.
Right.
Danny might be able to check. I think UEFA competitions are the only one where you can get permission. I think he'll be cup tied. But there's also a chance he might come back anyway. He hasn't really played, has he? And also, I mean, if Freddy is still in charge, Eddie was pretty good under 23s. You never know whether he might think he'll come back and play here.
Because he's not getting much game time.
No, he's not, is he?
He's got Bamford up front, haven't he? He had a spell where Bamford wasn't playing very well. But I'm just done a search on oh, here we go. This is from One Football. God, let's make it up, don't they? It says Leeds haven't played in the FA Cup yet, so Nketiah wouldn't be cup tied for Arsenal nor any other club if the Gunners want to reloan him. That's not the answer, is it?
I think the only issue is if we bring him back, he can't then play and then be loaned again because
for two clubs.
The FIFA ruling where you can't play for 3 clubs in a season.
Well, I'm reading, and I thought I saw this as well. I'm reading that Bristol City, their club is saying that they want to sign him in January. So, I mean, we had heard that rumor for a while, but I think it says Bristol City's CEO, so one of their heads has said that they're still looking at the possibility of getting him in January.
Well, so. They thought they had him in, back in the summer. Bristol City thought they'd pretty much they'd even booked the medical and everything. And then I think there's a good piece on The Athletic by Phil Hay, who's the sort of Leeds, aficionado, this sort of pitch that Leeds did to get him with, Victor to the director of football, Bielsa, and they won to get Nketiah, and then they've not even played him. So it's all very odd.
Very annoying. But, a home game against a lower league club, you'd like to think that it is... we should win that game, but with Arsenal's defence as it is, and like Simon said, if Leeds can't really come for us, obviously depending on what sort of game what team we play, I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park for us at all. I genuinely don't. I think that I'm not going to say that we're going to struggle, but I don't think we'll find it very, very easy.
As long as we don't get what we had back in 1991, we played them 4 times in the FA Cup.
Yeah, but replays.
Well, it's not allowed anymore, is it? So it won't happen. So I might as well shut up.
What's the rule in that? Is it penalties after? I thought it was after quarterfinals. No more replays. Or just no replays whatsoever now.
I think it's you get your first final, then you get a replay, and then at the end of the replay, it's penalties, isn't it?
Oh, okay. So you do get the replay because I know they were saying is it after the quarterfinals, there's no more replays. It has to be settled on that day.
Yeah, I think it's 5th round maybe. So last 16 and quarters, I don't have replays. I think just because of the rationale, then most of the teams who want the big money spinning replay are usually out. I think is why they've sort of stopped it.
There's an interesting stat actually that 3 of our last 4 FA Cup knockouts have been at home, which is quite interesting. You wouldn't have thought that, but we lost, I guess, to Man United last season as well was at home. So I don't think home advantage has really helped us a lot in the FA Cup, to be honest.
Someone's just mentioned the Arsenal ladies coach, Aussie Joe. Could he give him a go as manager? In fact, get my Dima up front for us. She got 26 goals in the last 16 games. Club and country.
That was mad at the weekend where she scored 6 and assisted 4.
Shout out to the ladies Arsenal team who scored, was it 11-1?
Yeah, and we beat Bristol 7-0 a couple of games before that as well. So there's 18 goals against Bristol, most of which Vivian got on her own.
But there was talk. There was a few people banging the drum for Emma Hayes, who's obviously the Chelsea women coach, to get the men's job or get a sniff at getting a men's job.
She scares me.
I think it's a whole other conversation in football with
yeah, that's true. Yeah, let's not go down that tangent.
No, definitely. That kind of sums up Arsenal's week. I mean, what are your thoughts? Just quickly touching on tomorrow, Danny. What are your thoughts about tomorrow's game against Brighton, or today if you're listening?
I'll have to compare it to the Norwich game. I think some things that we did see in the Norwich game, we weren't playing it out from the back quite as much. You saw Torreira playing a more deeper role, which is what we need to continue doing. You're not playing him as in the number 10 like Emery liked to see him play. We understand why he did it, breaking up play further up the pitch. But if to do that, you might as well just go and tackle their goalkeeper. That would be the nth degree of using him further up the pitch. I think we might see Bellerin and Tierney come back because it's been a week since they last played, hopefully, and get more shape to the defence. And I think I'd like to see Chambers and Holding as the back two because I like them. There you go. And I don't want to. I want to see Lacazette dropped. I love Lacazette, as I said, but I think we will play as a more organised team if you have one front man and two wide men with Ozil playing behind them. And Brighton aren't known for their defensive qualities, and I think tomorrow could be a high-scoring game. Hopefully,
Femi, what would you, if any, changes would you make against Brighton that you had against Norwich?
I think we need to treat it like a proper home game now. Not go in with a 3 at the back or anything like that. Just play 4-3-2-1. That's what I think this team is geared up for. Just play the 4 up front and just go for it. I think Freddy was basically saying that today. He just said, look, we just need to make the fans happy. I know there's going to be a buzz again around the stadium tomorrow, and that hasn't been the case for a while. You know, there's people that sit behind me like a couple of weeks ago. They're like, I don't even know why I'm coming here anymore. But I think it will be different tomorrow, Thursday, I should say. I think it will be really, something just to galvanize the fans. Just go for it and let's just have fun. Football's supposed to be fun, We want to have fun when we watch it. Like Freddy said, the players should have fun when they play with smiles on their faces. Let's just go and have fun. We've got nothing to lose anymore, to be honest. So I hope they just go for it.
Agreed. Simon,
I did today's Tuesday, Karl. People are pointing out that I said tomorrow. I thought today was Wednesday.
I copied you as well.
Well, this ain't going out till tomorrow, right?
No, be out later tonight. No, we're live, Karl.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Fuck off, Danny. Simon, did Freddy drop any knowledge on the team that he might pick against Brighton?
No, he was pretty guarded about it, as you expect. Said there might be changes. Yeah, and I think I agree with sort of what Femi said about going out and playing and expressing themselves and having fun, because we haven't had. I mean, Christ, it hasn't been fun much the last 2 months, has it? I think people would really appreciate that if the side went out and played. I think in terms of the team, I think we'll more see Freddy's team for this. He's had a bit of a longer run up. I kind of felt a bit like the team that played on Sunday, the Norwich game. Mustafi was in there, Xhaka was in there, Ozil was in there, who might have been in his team anyway, but they all felt like players who were slightly ostracised by Emery, and he sort of brought them back in to say, look, everyone's in with a chance, it's a clean slate. So I wonder now if he's had, 4 days to prepare, we'll get a proper sort of look at what his team's going to be. And for me, I would agree with Femi and go with a 4-2-3-1 and let those 4 players, whether it's Pepe or Martinelli, let them go at it and express themselves and have a go at Brighton.
Karl, Karen makes a point here. She says, our fortunes have to change at some time, so why not on Thursday? Hey, Karl.
Indeed. I think that, like Femi said, I think that a lot of people will return for the Brighton game. I think we saw a lot of empty seats on last Thursday, and I think that this game on Thursday, this game coming on Thursday, I think a lot of people will turn up because I think this is a reset. I think, even though Freddy is in, at the moment, temporary charge, I think this would be a reset for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people just wanting to see Emery gone. And I think that the football is going to change. We all know it's not going to change overnight. But however, I think it's an opportunity now to get behind the team and just, support them as we should do. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but hopefully get a good result against Brighton, who, as we know, nothing ever good comes from Brighton. I'm sure Josh used to live there. And just
scumbags.
Absolutely, definitely. But yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this again, but yeah, hopefully we can get a good result against Brighton, and hopefully that will kick us on for the rest of the season, and we can continue to do well. So, Daniel.
Yes.
We will do listeners' questions, and I will hand the chalice over to you.
Oh, good. Right. We've got lots of good questions, and people have chucked them in the chat. So everybody gets one question. I will start with you, Karl, because you've done such a wonderful job of hosting. Mark Blondal. I'm sure that's how you say. He's got a little line through the O. He'll probably tell me off. He says, how many different youth players will Freddy try or use while in charge? In the same vein, should we try more youth players for the defence if it allows us to nail down a tactical setup while accepting the mistakes of youth, especially since the senior players make plenty themselves? Now, that's a good point, because we have got some really, really good young... we've got Zach Medley. That's one who has been talked about quite a lot. We've even got a magnificent 18-year-old goalkeeper who's 6'5" and still growing. And who else have we got? Mavropanos is another younger key player. Bola, another decent one. Well, Holding and Chambers. What do you think to that, Karl?
I think that's almost admitting defeat, just saying, oh yeah, the youth are going to come in, they're going to make mistakes, but don't worry about it. Because what we don't want to do is ruin these kids before they've even had a chance. Because as soon as a youth team player comes in and they make a mistake, this is Arsenal fan base we're talking about, they will jump on them. We don't have the patience on the Arsenal fan base. So I think Freddy will introduce youth maybe a little bit more. However, I don't think now is the time. I think even though, you know, we may say the season's a write-off, I think we still got to at least try and concentrate, whereas the teams above us are still dropping points. The likes of Chelsea, he dropped points at the weekend. The likes of Manchester United, who are at the moment at absolute shambles. You know, we're still fighting to try and get into that top four. And, you know, I think Wolves are above us at the moment, and so are Sheffield United. I mean, we said this last time about Leicester. I remember having this conversation with Chris saying, oh yeah, they're going to fall off, don't worry about it. But I genuinely think that Sheffield United will fall off. I don't think the football that they play, I don't think the intensity can last. However, at the moment, they're playing one game a week, apart from when the cup games come in, so they're nice. My fear is that I don't want Freddy to overload the team with youth, because we need to take time with these kids, you know, let them learn their trade within the under-23s, and then when and only when they're ready, set them up.
Yeah, fair enough. So basically stick what we were doing all season, as they're getting a few games here and there.
Indeed.
I think also you got to be really, like Karl just said, you got to be careful, because if you look at someone like Zach Medley last season, everyone was shouting, "Oh, play Medley, play Medley." He's hardly played for the under-23s this season. Now, that's how far backwards he's gone. So you got to be careful. You know, a lot of the Chelsea players that they're raving on about, they had been on loan for quite a lot of games before they came back this season.
Sometimes
our young players are coming straight from under-23s, and we're expecting quite a lot of them. So you just got to be careful, really.
True.
Agreed.
Right, Josh Robinson has asked us a question which I don't want anybody to answer. He says, would you take finishing in top four at the expense of being up all night with prickly heat? Now, Josh, you had a brilliant question asked on Askcast. I think you've wasted your best question on them, and you've sent us one, because I don't even know what up all night with prickly heat means. Does anybody know? There you go, Josh. There's your answer. Right, Simon from Tone. Can we win the league with Kroenke as the owner? I like that.
Well, that's a $1 million question, isn't it? We're certainly a long way from it at the moment. Yeah, I mean, I think in time we can, but the issue is at the moment, the spending power we have is nowhere near Liverpool or Manchester City, is it? So unless Kroenke, we know he's got the money, don't we? Unless we see a change in the spending power, it's no. But we can, in theory, yes. I mean, Leicester won the freaking league, didn't they? So
yes, very true. Okay, Matt L. Roberts for you, Femi. Should we be moving to make an appointment as quickly as possible, or try and get someone in the end of the season? And which is the better choice going forward? We've covered this a little bit, but I think Matt puts this.
Yeah, I think we've covered that. But what I would say is just make the right appointment. It doesn't matter how long it takes. You just have to. It's such an important appointment for the club, because this will pretty much determine our destination for the next 5 years. The plan was apparently for the club were aiming to be back in the Champions League by this year or next year, I think is what I heard. So we've pretty much just wasted 18 months, and to waste another 18 months would, just leave us just behind teams like Wolves and teams that have structure already.
Okay. Well, this is more of a point from Siddharth. He says, on a recent Joe Rogan podcast, probably one of the reasons for Bellerin's declining performance is his transition to veganism. This got me a little bit worried. Now, if you want to go on the Joe Rogan Experience, episode number 1389 on YouTube, if you listen to it on podcast, go to about 1 hour 26 because he has 10 minutes of adverts at the beginning. So on YouTube, it's about 1 hour 16. Chris Kresser said that Cam Newton went vegan and had the worst season of his life. He struggled for fitness, struggled to recover from injury, and couldn't keep weight on. And then he gave examples for other sportsmen who went vegan and struggled, as they need 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day. But he did say that some are fine and some struggle. Has anybody got any thoughts on that? Because I don't know what to make of it. Personally, I'm a carnivore. I don't eat vegetables. At least the way I look at it, a cow can run away, a carrot can't.
Oh God, it's a lifestyle choice, isn't it? It's you obviously need to compensate for your protein and things like that, but there are alternatives out there. I think it's just your body getting used to it. I do agree with the injury sort of setup because
I think that's the main part.
Yeah, I think a lot of things that you may get from maybe fish and to an extent meat as well, you're lacking, and if you're trying to find a replacement in that with another food, I just don't think it has the same qualities no matter how many vitamins you may take.
But none of us are experts on it. Anybody else got any views on this veganism thing? Archie's put blaming vegans for Bellerin injury. Yeah,
I did watch that Netflix documentary. I don't know if you've seen, there's like the plant-based one, and it did make me want to give up meat, and then I was just really wanted a burger, so I didn't. But
jeez, I've actually, in my diet, I've had to give up bread and lactose. And if you're lucky enough to be a member of any of the groups in ABW, you will see that most days of the week I'm shitting and puking because my arthritis, I take an injection and I take other stuff, which means I'm constantly fucking ill from it. And if I had a vegan diet, I'd be perfectly fine. That's how much I hate veganism, that I'm still on the meat and I'm still on a sneaky bit of cheese. But
and we will live stream that for a right donation.
Yesterday, I was ill from 6 p.m. until 3 a.m. Just dry heaving because it just makes me ill. But there you go. That's the trouble to life. Femi, you got any dietary input you can put into this?
No, not in the slightest. All I do know is one of the guys that I work with, he does cycling, and he's somehow said he's gonna do a vegan diet because it boosts something. I don't even know what he said, but there must be. I mean, a lot of athletes have gone vegan, not just footballers. Some footballers, so there must be something that's recommended to them by and I'm sure I also have good nutritionists and doctors and sports scientists at the club, probably some of the best in the world. So I don't know, we argue with them, I guess.
Depends whether you take it, whether become a vegan to prove a point or because you need it. One of those people are arseholes. One of those people, good luck to you. And to number has said, Danny, the voice of science as we know it. There you go. Actual facts. Subsystem has asked, where's Ceballos? Simon, any idea?
Still injured.
Okay.
Still injured. Be a couple more weeks.
There you go. That's why I'm Simon there. He's not just a human quiff. He has answers to questions. Right. Next, I did do all the questions, didn't I? And then those ones, not all of them. I've got loads more. Oh, okay. Right. Back to Karl. No, you all get one job at this. Pete Kennelly, our mate from Australia. So imagine this podcast buys the club, buys Arsenal. Which panel members do what jobs and why? So all three of you can think of one ABW person, and that does. Oh, by the way, people, Richard and Femi and Drew are now doing stuff for ABW. They're now in the ABW WhatsApp groups. How does that feel, Femi? Is it a dream come true?
It is. I mean, it's just really good as a listener. I've listened to every show, I think. So yeah, it's really good. Thanks.
Well, that's overwhelming. It's not the 3-hour speech I wanted. At least no one come up and grabbed the microphone out of your hand and shouted into it. That's a good point. Right, so I'll go first to give you some idea. I would have our OG and our Mr. Goonerholic. I'd have them write the match day programs. So there you go. Anybody got Simon? You got an idea of who you'd want, or
so how many members of staff am I appointing? 3 members of staff.
Ain't got all day. Yeah.
Oh, I'd loads of ideas. I'd have Carpenter as manager, Dom as head of medical, Jeff as the transfer fixer, and Goonerholic as the owner and chairman, because we're statesman-like, Sir Chips-like role.
Carl,
can we change Chris to the social media manager? Just
unpopular
giving
opinion.
it back to fans as they're giving it to him.
every Arsenal tweet. Unpopular opinion. Fuck Spurs.
and I'd have OG as Gunnosaurus.
Oh, there you go. You got any, Carl?
I'd have Jason as the yoga instructor for his calm and demeaning nature. I'd have Danny as the groundsman, cutting the grass, because in your wheelchair you can cover a lot of ground quickly.
Especially if I get that 4x4 one. Oh, hello.
Exactly. I would have OG. I'd have OG as head of international relations. Simon, obviously, our media correspondent, leaking out information as and when required.
Jason can be in charge of bins. Loki's put here. Chris's team kits, sleeveless, of course. All black and sleeveless with skull and crossbones on.
I wouldn't have Ellis Tedder's medical because fucking hell, all of our players would be injured every fucking game.
Oh, here you go, Cole. You got a little bit of heat here. Josh says, Cole.
Oh, who the fuck is Josh? Fuck Josh. I'd fire Josh. I'd hire him as something. I'd fire him the same day. But yeah, I think the best one I've heard is what Simon said, Jeff, as head of our transfer international fixtures. I'm sorry, head of fixing contracts. Bloody hell.
He managed to get Messi for 25 quid.
Don Jeff Arsenal is what it is.
That's it. Archie's put. Imagine Karl sending the team to Arsenal. They wouldn't make to Newcastle. They wouldn't make it.
We'd be fine just to set out a day early.
Okay, right. Start with you again, Karl. Archie, why are we the only club where we have to worry about FFP? Ornstein leaking. We don't want to spend big on a new manager, yet Spurs have done. And with a new stadium, they got Jose. I have edited that a little bit and made it worse. Sorry, Archie.
Because we're the only club in the whole of the Premier League whose owner hasn't put a single penny into the club. That's the reason why. We are literally one of the only clubs who has to be self-sustaining. All other 20 Premier League clubs, and please someone correct me if I'm wrong, have had money put into them by their owners, and we haven't. So that's the reason why.
Yeah. There we go. Loki adding to the last thing. John, sexual healthcare expert. Okay, next question is for Simon. Echo's looking at me. Keeps flashing. It's been a meanie. Right. From Dave Atkinson. Can Freddy till the end of the season? Can Freddy manage till the end of the season? I know he has an A license, but does he have them all? Now, Simon, wasn't there a little bit of unsure about whether he did stuff with the Welsh FA, and something about the Welsh FA have closed their applications for the pro license yesterday?
Yeah, this was a weird one because so it started on Twitter actually. All the sort of rumours, and someone correctly picked it up, and then it was put by myself and a few others to the club who said he was all fully quiet, had a UEFA pro license. The Welsh FA, I think, may have come out publicly and said, or it was reported that they had said something differently. And the Welsh FA just is normally where a lot of managers do their badges. I think Henry did his there, Arteta did his there. And the issue is he might have been McGiggs a few years ago when he had the United temporary job. So you can normally do it for sort of 3 months and need to be badged in that time. Arsenal still sort of saying there's no issue at all. He's got all his badges, all his licenses. They're not phased at all. So
isn't there a database you can go and have access to?
I don't know. I mean, you can just literally ring up the Welsh FA if you really wanted to, and they'll probably tell you. But the Arsenal seem completely relaxed, confident about it. They don't see any issues. So I don't think it'll be a problem at all.
Good. There you go. Right. Next question for you, Femi. Okay. Richard Garrett says, out of all the podcast pundits, who would make the best manager? I mean, you can include all other podcasts as well.
Oh my gosh, that's where am I going to go with that one? Who have I heard talk the most sense over this?
Well, that's ABW ruled out.
Do you know what I like? I like the sound of Goonerholic as manager. I think he's so level-headed, he's so calm. He talks so much sense. Like when you listen to him, you can actually see what he's saying. He would galvanize a club. You know, I like that. That's my shout anyway.
Lovely. Right, we've got 3 more questions, one each. Karen's asked 2, but I'm going to ask just this one for you, Karl. If that's the case, what do you think of Pep as our new next manager? Believe me, I would be ecstatic if this happened.
The problem with Pep is there's not many times I've sided with Chris, but I'm going to side with him. He needs money. Anywhere he's gone, he spent money. Bayern Munich, he spent money. Manchester City, clearly he spent money. Barcelona, he spent money. Pep Guardiola is an absolutely wonderful manager. I have no doubt about that. And I think whether I think he can come in and change Arsenal, I don't know. That'll be a test of his powers. However, the money that Pep wants to spend, Arsenal do not and will not ever have that money. Never. And I truly believe that he will leave Man City at the end of this season if they don't win the Champions League.
See what Josh has put, Karl.
I would say the problem with Pep is he's too successful.
No good for us.
Probably, but I just think that the money that he would want to come in and spend, we will not have that. We just won't spend that sort of money. So I think there's an issue with, you could say to Pep, okay, well, you have to work with what you've got, or you can buy limited players. And I just don't think that Pep Guardiola is going to want to do that. So that's for me. Oh, breaking news from Josh: Ancelotti's just been sacked. Oh, I bet his odds are going to come down now.
Napoli or Lazio, one of them two?
Napoli's that.
Always got the 2 blue teams mixed up.
Yeah, so
he apparently very much wants the Arsenal job, Ancelotti. But I think that might be more his side than our side.
Well, he's only 60. He's got a face of someone who's 75. He has managed.
He's got the eyebrow as well. He's one with the eyebrow, isn't he?
Going backwards, Napoli, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, PSG, Chelsea, Milan, Juventus, Parma, Reggiana. And what trophies has he won? I hear nobody ask. He has won as a player. He won the league with Roma, the league twice with Milan, international, 3rd place in the World Cup. He's won the league with AC Milan and the Champions League twice with AC Milan. And the Premier League, the FA Cup and Community Shield with Chelsea. He's won the league with PSG. He's won the Champions League with Real Madrid. He's won the league and the German Cup with Bayern Munich. I guess, too good for us.
Yeah. So back to the original question. Yes. I'd love to see Pep Guardiola at our club. I think I'd love to see Pep Guardiola when he left Barcelona before he took a sabbatical to go to Bayern Munich. And I wish that was the time that Arsene Wenger had left and brought Pep in, but that wasn't to be. But the odds of him coming to us, I think, are very slim to none, if I'm really honest. Quick question, Simon, have you heard any rumours about him leaving in the summer? No?
I'm muted. Sorry.
Was that self-muting to save yourself? Let's do it again.
The main sort of rumours flying about have been the Ober and Lacazette contract. Other than that, that's been the main sort of rumours I've seen flying around. I haven't seen anything else. Where have you seen or where have you heard? Or
no, just you will see some sort of rumours flying around about the project at Man City is kind of, he doesn't really stay in the job very long anyway, and I think it's coming to the point where I think if they don't win Champions League, then has he done all he can do at Man City?
Yeah, I think the thing with Pep, we sort of found with Barca and Bayern, didn't we, where he gets sort of 2-3 years in, and it feels like the players almost get worn out by his methodology, and he's so intense in his coaching. And to be fair to Pep, he's had to sort of fight the rumours a bit that that he's not going anywhere. I think Josh was sort of saying in the chat that it sounds like that Pep is going off. So and the whole Van Bronckhorst thing, maybe that's aligning. I mean, City want him there as long as possible, but at the end of the day, it's going to be when Pep's had enough, he's going, isn't it? He's going to have full display. And the one people were talking about is whether he wanted to go back to Bayern and do another stint there. I wonder with Pep whether once he's done City, I'm not sure where else he really goes.
Italy.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Italy, maybe. He also strikes me as someone who could retire quite early and think, I've had enough.
Yeah, I don't think he'll leave. I had a thought he would leave City even before the rumours, but then I just really thought about where else is he going to go after City. I think he might find it a bigger challenge to refresh this Man City squad because he's got unlimited money. They've just got some silly sponsorship deal last week, didn't they? Yeah, exactly.
He does basically have his own football club. He's not going to get that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think he'll stay.
Right, final couple of questions. One for you, Femi, from Archie. Do you think Arsenal need players like Grealish from Villa or Dunk from Brighton to come in and add that English grit? Quick to turn away players like this would improve our turn.
Oh my God, I was thinking about Jack Grealish on Monday night or something like that. Yesterday,
to Radio 5 and they had
listened to something, yeah.
And they were saying, we went down, we'd never sell him. And then someone rang up when Villa did go down, he was the first to put in a transfer request. So
yeah, I think he would be an excellent signing. I've been so impressed with him since he got his head together, basically, and stopped all the, immature getting drunk and partying out in places. He's been it would be an excellent signing. When you think about it, the reason why I was even thinking about him was because there was about James Maddison at Leicester and how you can't, there's players out there that, we turn up as Arsenal fans, we turn our nose up at a lot of players, but some of them are actually really, really good if you just take a punt on them. I don't see how Grealish is any worse than, sorry to say this, Mesut Ozil. I know I'll probably get shouted at. Yeah. I just don't see what the difference is in quality. Mesut Ozil is on the way down. Grealish is on the way up. It will just cost a lot of money. And if he goes to Tottenham, that's one that you'd probably regret. So I think there are players out there.
He's got
players out there. We just have to start making sensible transfer decisions. I hope we do, really. We just have to scout players better. We just have to do everything better, to be honest, and look at Premier League ready players. That's probably the best way to rise up the pitch, to be honest, up the table now.
Jolly good. Right, we've got one more yes/no question. Gentlemen, get your shout outs ready, your gentlemen's nods, your ladies' hellos, get them ready. We're going to get all this done, and we've done it within 5 minutes. Because I think Mrs. Quiff might be home and someone's having pot noodle for dinner if we don't get on with it. Right, so the final question is from Marble Halls TV. Should we sell Lacazette for 80 million and get in a top-level centre-back? Karl?
We wouldn't get 80 million for Lacazette.
I don't know,
sorry to burst everyone's bubble.
But would you sell him if it meant we could get maybe 50, 60 million for him and spend that on a centre-back?
Who wouldn't get 56 million for him? I'm sorry, I don't know where people are getting these numbers from, but yes, I would.
If we can get decent money for him, Femi?
Yes. but then would Aubameyang just want to leave us? I don't know. We can't sell both of them, can we?
Someone said in the chat box, just make sure whoever we get is good mates with Aubameyang, we'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. What if we're going to lose both of them, aren't we? Let's just be honest. Just prepare ourselves for the worst.
Okay, Simon?
Yeah, I get the feeling that if Lacazette wants to go, then get rid of him.
The only reason he came is because Atletico were on a transfer ban, wasn't it?
I think I worry with him is that he's not won any trophies. And I just worry if he's getting to that point where he's a bit like, he's starting to get slightly pissed off.
Because Barca are looking to get a replacement for Suarez, aren't they?
And I would keep over Lacazette if it was one of the two.
100%.
Okey-dokey. Right, next thing we're going to move on to Vice Forum. How long will Freddy get before some of our fans want him out? Matt L. Roberts. Bet it's already started, considering people are blaming the way he dresses already. Luca, one more game. Bobby, check your booty. Depends upon how much of an idiot they are. I've seen people that have tweeted this already this thing. Mark, fine. Some dumb shits already want him out after only a day of training. And the normal Gooner, it's too late. Some twats already turned on him. How did our fan base fall so far from one of the classiest clubs around? So there you go, Karl. That is all the questions and the 5 form. All we need to do now is you to shout at us until we tell you who our gentleman's nod is, and then mention who's on the show tomorrow. Oh, and Movember.
Yes. We need to definitely mention Movember. So, Danny has kindly put into my DMs. He slid into my DMs, I should say. £959 so far. But Josh Company said they will double it, and double his, and it is £1,673. I need to say a massive thank you to every single person who's donated. It is a absolutely lovely cause what you're donating for, and it's not too late, is it, Danny? Still,
yeah.
No, you can still donate if you want to. The last 2 donators were Simon put in £200,000 and Jason put in 50p. So yeah, thank you very much for that.
Yes, I need to thank every single person. Like I said, the cause is a magnificent cause, and again, from the bottom of everyone's hearts at ABW, a much massive thank you to every single person. Right, we're going to do shout outs because fuck your gentleman's nods, Danny, because we're down with the kids and we are hip. So, Simon, who is your shout out to?
It's got to be to the Movember guys. I know we just shouted them out there, but a brilliant effort from them for a fantastic cause. I mean, some of the tashes are utterly disgraceful. But the money raised and the awareness raised, is fantastic. I've known people who've gone through testicular cancer going through it, and things like this, which our podcast does every now and then. We do come together and for a good cause and do something good. It is why we all do the show, and I think a huge amount of credit deserves to go for them. And hats off.
Okay, Femi, who is your shout out to?
I'd like to give a shout out to @OurWayne75. Really good interaction on Twitter. Had some really good conversations on Twitter this week. So it's @ALWayne75 on Twitter.
Much appreciated. Daniel.
My own one is going to go to a young man. I say he's a young man. I've got no idea how old he is. He was on Tom's podcast yesterday, and he said he's been listening to ABW for a while. It's @FrenchGooner23, and he hasn't got many followers. He's a really good bloke, and he's got wonderful hair. And Tom said we can borrow him. So that's my own personal one. But from the podcast one, it's going to go to Julian Nagelsmann. I know who you really are, Mr. AH. Michael Harniman, Michael Hernandez, Unique79, Michael Harniman again for all your donations during this show and the last show. They have all been wrapped up in duck fat and will be put up Jason's bottom sometime in the next month. I don't know where I was going with that, so I was thinking turkey. Karl,
okay.
you got it.
I'm going to have 2 because I'm selfish and I'm the host and I can do what the fuck I want. So my first one is going to be the last person that followed me because that's what I always do. And it is G-Nick 1886. You're the last person that followed me, definitely. And my other one is going to go to Andrew Fife. I met him the other day for the second time. The man is possibly the nicest person you will ever meet in the whole entire world.
And didn't he just win a 10K marathon, a mini marathon, wearing a kilt?
Because the man is like, he's the modern day Superman, isn't he? Like,
God, I love him.
I know. So go for
so the. It's impressive to do a 10K marathon, but never mind.
So for the Simon, which is PR_who, I think that's his Twitter name. Go and follow him. Oh, Simon's in trouble.
And that's me getting told to come eat my dinner. That's what that is.
I should say hello to Mrs. Quiff. Hello.
Right, so let's wrap this up before Simon gets a spank body. I think Femi's gone, so we'll say bye to.
Femi's back.
Oh, is he back?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Femi is back. So quickly before Simon gets a telling off and he has to sleep on the sofa, we'll wrap this up. So Femi, thank you for joining ABW today.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
I see Danny's had us both on at the same time again. Yes, I'm going to mention it again because every single time you're on, Femi, Danny drags me on. I just think it's an aesthetic thing.
Karl,
that's what it is.
I have to tell the boys and girls at home what you said on after the live show the other day.
Danny, what's said in the chat stays in the chat, so you can't say that.
Something along the lines
Danny,
of, if Femi's on, then I'm coming on and I'm going to bully you. I think that was Karl, wasn't it?
Technically, that's a lie, but Simon, always a pleasure. I love reading your tweets. You give us all the exclusives, and you need to give us a bit more.
Thank you for having me on. It's been very good, very enjoyable.
Daniel, you have to be here. So I'm not going to thank you for being on. I'm just going to thank you for all the work you do for ABW, because without you, as we know, none of this is possible.
And thank you very much to you for making sure no one gets to work on time.
Pleasure, as always. So after that, I will say thank you, dear listeners. Tune in on Thursday for the radio show once we whoop Brighton 4-0. Daniel, do you know who's on? Because I don't.
It is Ellis, Josh, and Drew, I think. And I'm on standby.
Ellis is on. It's not going to be a good show then.
No.
Anyway, after that, I will say thank you again to listeners and a goodbye. Oh, hashtag fuck Ellis.
I was waiting for that. Oh dear. I've clicked it. Oh no, click it again.